Welcome back to the Grateful Wife podcast, everyone. Today we're going to be tackling something that's been driving me crazy for years, something that I think if we were to really sit down and have an honest discussion with our own daughters, I think that we could save them years of heartbreak, confusion, and even trauma. I'm talking about none other than the toxic messaging that Hollywood has been feeding women about love and romance. See, movies have spent decades glorifying the most damaging relationship dynamics as passionate and romantic, while painting stable, virtuous partnerships as boring and unfulfilling. And this has left generations of women chasing chaos and wondering why they can't find a good man. If you've ever wondered why it feels so hard to find a good partner, or why the spark seems to be more important than stability, this episode is for you. I'm going to be primarily focusing on Chris Williamson's video that he did, Where Are All the Good Men? I think he does an excellent job of breaking it all down, and I'll leave the link below in the description so that you can check it out, because I highly encourage you all to watch it. And then we're going to be contrasting one of my all-time favorite films, Bridget Jones's Diary, and what it actually got right with this. And then I will finish with giving practical advice of green and red flags for women to look for husband material. We're going to be talking about all of that and a lot more. Welcome back to the Grateful Wife podcast. So think about the classic rom-com or drama arc. Girl meets stable, kind guy. Girl meets exciting, brooding bad boy. Guess who she picks? Guess who the audience is rooting for? Chris Williamson absolutely nails this in his video about how pop culture teaches women to choose emotionally unavailable men. Movies reward the woman who wins the aloof, damaged hero. Stability is portrayed as sterile. Suffering is sexy. The Byronic hero, emotionally isolated, morally ambiguous, and a tragic past, he's the ideal. So let's see what Chris has to say about some of this, and then I'll add my thoughts.
In The Notebook, Ali chooses Noah, the poor, impulsive, deeply emotional man, over Lon, her secure and respectable fiancé. What's the conclusion? Stability is boring, and true love is obsessive, chaotic, and all-consuming. In Titanic, the scene that makes you like Jack more than Rose's wealthy fiancé Cal is that, for fun, Cal just sits and has quiet conversations with his friends, whereas Jack has fun with big, loud parties, and the movie portrays this as him living more authentically or living life to its fullest. But really, he's just living like a teenager. He has nothing to offer Rose in terms of reliability or safety, yet this brief, fiery connection is portrayed as more authentic than anything she could have had with a professional fiancé. In Twilight, Edward Cullen is dangerous and obsessive and emotionally tortured, and that is precisely what makes him desirable. Bella's rejection of Jacob, who's warm and grounded, underscores the trope, right? Safe is boring, danger is hot.
He's not wrong. He's really not wrong. I agreed with almost everything that he said there. Once upon a time, though, I believed these things when I was a young, naive teenager. I am proud, though, to say that I've never seen The Notebook. When I tell that to most women, they usually gasp, like, how could you possibly have never seen The Notebook? That's a sin. Well, it's true. I've never seen it, and now after listening to Chris' assessment, I probably never will. I'll wear it as a badge of honor, much like how I'll wear a badge of honor that I've never had a single tattoo. It's just something that I've never shown interest in. I have no interest in getting one, and I probably never will, but I digress. What Chris says here about The Notebook is absolutely true. And it's kind of insane if you're just hearing the facts regarding who Allie chose, when she had between Noah and Lon, and you list all the facts, and then you realize, really, she picked Noah? So it's easy for me to to say that because I'm not emotionally invested in this film or this relationship. So that's very easy to be pragmatic here. Titanic, however, is a completely different story. I've loved this film for almost 30 years, and I still bawl my eyes out every time I watch it. In fact, my son also loves Titanic, so we have to watch it every year on April 15th, which is the anniversary of the sinking. We have to watch Titanic, and every single year I bawl my eyes out. Just can't help it. But I cannot deny what Chris is saying about Jack does make a lot of sense. If I were to try to, look at Jack with a completely objective point of view, watching how at home Jack felt at that wild party below the decks of Titanic, it started to make me think well, maybe that was something about him that it could have been problematic for Rose had he actually survived the sinking. I mean, life isn't always just a big fun party. You eventually got to do the hard work. You got to get disciplined and you got to get to work. So back in the day, a lot of us would fantasize about the beautiful life that Jack and Rose could have built together had Jack survived the sinking. And in the end, the film proves that Rose was able to build a beautiful life for herself without the help of any man. And again, it's a little dose of feminist propaganda sprinkled in this film. But again, for all we know, Jack could have ruined Rose. I mean, imagine that they're living in some shack somewhere in New York City. And while Rose is trying to make an honest living, doing what she can to make money, Jack is out partying all night and spending all of their money. His one job was to try to sell his drawings, which they're very good, but, he still has all of them. It's not like he really made an effort to try to make money off of them. Anything to feed this woman that he supposedly loves. So it's just something that we, the audience, we didn't really think about because we were so emotionally invested in this relationship. But when you take the emotion out of it, when you extricate the emotion and you just have the facts, the facts don't line up. And it is true. Jack was really not the ideal choice for Rose, given the time period, given just the reality of life back then. Thinking about it, it was really a big, stupid gamble that she took. It worked out for her in the end, but we can't say that for most people. And it just goes to show how many women ultimately do choose their partners based on pure emotion. And that is not good at all. So on a side note, though, I do want to say that, Cal was a real jerk and he really did only care about his money. So he's an easy villain to hate. So I stand by that assessment. But here's the crux of my issue with these stories, where the heart of my concern is about the message that we're sending to young girls who watch these films. These stories don't just romanticize bad behavior. Many of them actually mirror patterns of narcissistic abuse. These films often reward emotionally unavailable, self-centered men who keep women hooked through something called intermittent reinforcement. Remember this word because it could save you later. Intermittent reinforcement is one of the most powerful and primary tactics that narcissists use to lure in their victims and keep their victims. So here is how intermittent reinforcement works. You meet a guy and there's an immediate connection, followed by intense highs. Think love bombing, wonderful words about how beautiful you are, how you're his soulmate, how he just can't live without you, etc. Grand gestures, expensive gifts, passionate sex, vulnerability dumps, the you can save me kind of talk, followed by sudden withdrawals, ghosting, criticism, or chaos. The brain gets flooded with dopamine during these highs, and it crashes during the lows. That unpredictability is addictive. It's the same mechanism that makes slot machines and things like heroin so dangerous. Women and viewers become wired to crave the next hit, to fight harder for the relationship, to prove that they're enough to win the prize version of him. And for me, I saw this clearly in the Twilight films, specifically the second one, New Moon, where Edward just up and leaves Bella. She proceeds to reach out to him for months and gets no response, and it crushes her. Jacob is there to help her get through it, but, it's just not enough. It's hanging on to the pain of what might have been. It's just more alluring. It's what gives Bella her fight to go on to find Edward, to prove to him that her love for him is undying, and maybe then he will change his mind. So, as you can see, this isn't harmless fantasy. Exposing these kinds of relationship dynamics, it conditions women to confuse conflict with chemistry, drama with depth, and the whole, I can fix him with love. I have to stress this. This is not love. This is an addiction, and neuroscience proves it. You see, scarcity and unavailability, they trigger those dopamine cravings in our brain. And it makes breadcrumbs, the little, bits of effort that the abuser will sprinkle and do, and it makes it feel meaningful. While consistent kindness, it gets taken for granted. As long as you continue this cycle, the breadcrumbs become less and less, and the abuse just gets worse and worse, and you become an addict. Chris again nails it. He explains how our brains are wired and how we perceive scarcity of affection.
Our brain says, if something is scarce, it must be more precious. And we take this economic dynamic into our love lives. So if someone stops texting us, or we feel like they're drifting, all of a sudden our brain says, they must be important. If they say, here I am, I genuinely like you and very much want to commit, our brains respond with, what's wrong with you? If you treat me like crap and you're in and out of my life and you text me a bit and then you go cold and I don't hear from you, many people think they might be the one. It is no coincidence that so many modern relationships do not begin with mutual understanding, but with a chase. We have taught women to interpret emotional inconsistency as romantic tension, to pursue the man who offers breadcrumbs of affection instead of consistent support, to believe that love is meant to be hard-earned, not freely given. And this has real consequences. It normalizes dysfunction. It rewires attraction around trauma. It sidelines healthy men and glorifies emotionally stunted ones. And it leaves women feeling like emotional burnout is the price that they have to pay for passion. Emotionally mature, transparently keen, and immediately available men are ignored in place of someone who amounts to little more than an effective dopamine trigger. This is why so many guys have so little sympathy for the "where are all of the good men at?" question.
Again, he's not wrong. If you get a chance, again, please check this video out. I really would love to empower so many women to have this kind of knowledge going forward as you approach relationships and people. I just think it's going to do you a world of good. So Chris goes on to the fact that men are noticing this pattern and they themselves even feel trapped. I mean, their perspective is why commit if emotional unavailability is what gets rewarded. And I think in that same video, Chris says he read a comment somewhere where a guy says, I'm trapped in a generation where I don't know whether to buy a girl flowers or to ignore her to win her affection. You read that. How sad is that? So now I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about one of my favorite films, one that I think one of the few from Hollywood that actually got this topic right, and that was Bridget Jones's Diary, the first one. This film, I think, brilliantly contrasts the toxic excitement with real virtue, and it did it 25 years ago. Bridget Jones, in the beginning, is drawn to her witty, charming, flirtatious boss, Daniel Cleaver. He is essentially the bad boy who makes her feel alive. He's exciting, he says all the right things, until he cheats and lies. And then there's Mark Darcy. He's awkward, he's reserved, seemingly judgmental at first. He's successful, principled, emotionally steady, and respectful. And he likes Bridget just the way she is. This scene alone sent shockwaves across the world, and without a doubt changed my entire outlook on relationships. In fact, from the moment I saw this clip, I knew I had to find myself a Mark Darcy. Here's where he tells her that he likes her just the way she is.
It didn't work out with Daniel Cleaver.
No, it didn't.
I'm delighted to hear it.
Look, are you and Cosmo in this together? I mean, you seem to go out of your way to try to make me feel like a complete idiot every time I see you. And you really needn't bother. I already feel like an idiot most of the time anyway. With or without a fireman's pole. That'll be my taxi. Good night.
Look, I'm sorry if I've been...
What?
I don't think you're an idiot at all. I mean, there are elements of the ridiculous about you. Your mother's pretty interesting. And you really are an appallingly bad public speaker. And you tend to let whatever's in your head come out of your mouth without much consideration of the consequences. I realized that when I met you at the turkey curry buffet that I was unforgivably rude and wearing a reindeer jumper that my mother had given me the day before. But the thing is, what I'm trying to say very inarticulately is that, in fact, perhaps despite appearances, I like you very much.
Apart from the smoking and the drinking and the vulgar mother and the verbal diarrhea.
No, I like you very much. Just as you are.
See, he's not playing games. He's being honest. No big dramatic chases, no ignoring boundaries. He shows up consistently. And that is a big, big deal. So another reason why, in my opinion, Bridget Jones's Diary remains one of the most honest and helpful romance films ever made is the fact that it shows Bridget actively breaking the narcissistic cycle before it fully traps her again. Daniel Cleaver is the textbook charming narcissist. He gives Bridget just enough attention to keep her hooked. And then he lies, and then he cheats, and then he devalues her. That push-pull is a classic intermittent reinforcement tactic, and is portrayed exactly as addictive as it is in real life. And what I love the most is Bridget's growth. She recognizes the familiar toxic pattern with Daniel. She feels the pull, the excitement mixed with the pain, and she chooses to break the cycle.
That's not a good enough offer for me. I'm not willing to gamble my whole life on someone who's, well, not quite sure. It's like you said, I'm still looking for something more extraordinary than that.
She walks away from the predictable heartbreak and opens herself to something real with Mark. That moment is incredibly powerful. It's the lesson that every woman needs, that you can stop the roller coaster before it destroys you. You deserve consistency, respect, and peace, not endless emotional warfare disguised as passion. Even as a teenager watching this, I instantly rooted for Mark because the film actually made his virtues visible. In today's culture, we're told to choose the challenging Daniel because he's more exciting. Bridget shows us the wiser path. We desperately need more stories like this. Okay, so if you're a young woman navigating dating and you actually want a marriage, or better yet, if you're a mother who wants to give her daughter real insight and life-changing advice about dating, do yourself a favor and forget the Hollywood script. Instead, learn to look for these classic red and green flags in men. I promise you, if you can learn to read these classic signs, you are saving yourself and your daughters years of trauma and therapy and will almost guarantee them a happy, healthy marriage. So let's get started first with the red flags. Think of red begins with the letter R. R means run, okay? The classic first red flag is love bombing, okay? This is over the top early affection, like, oh, you're my soulmate, or I, can't live without you, or no one understands me except you, or you're perfect, etc., etc. It's pretty much anything that you hear in the movies. This is the number one red flag that I think could save you above all else, because it's the easiest one to detect if you know what to look for. This alone will save you if you have the power to resist the lies being sold to you. If someone is speaking to you as if he's a character in a movie, run like hell and don't look back. Your future self will thank you. Next up, we have emotional unavailability or hot and cold behavior. These can be seen in the form of inconsistent texts, mixed signals, fear of commitment. If you find yourself pondering the meaning of his messaging or confused about what he's saying or feeling, run. This is a dopamine addiction. This is not love. I can fix him thoughts. Trauma dumps. When a guy tells you about his tragic past, the things that he's experienced that has hurt his ability to get close to anyone, except you, of course, he feels safe talking to you. This is classic emotional manipulation used to obscure poor behavior, rage, control, or isolation from friends and family. He is essentially weaponizing your empathy. And you, of course, you see the real him. You see his potential. But please, for the sake of your happiness, do not bet your whole life on someone else's potential. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I see in women who get caught up in these relationships. If a person actually has potential, then they would actively be using it to better themselves and achieve their goals. That is not your job to build him up and fix him to reach his potential. Run and focus on your own potential instead. Next, we have disrespect for boundaries. Pushing physical and emotional limits, jealousy that isolates you or makes you feel like you have to earn basic decency. Real love is not built on disrespect. So if you feel yourself being pushed, you're being pushed down a dark road that you will be stuck on unless you turn around and make a run for it. Next, we have no accountability. He blames everyone for his problems. He never apologizes genuinely or turns conflict into your fault. This is another classic narcissistic abuse tactic, and it's the exact opposite of how a healthy man operates. Do not waste your time with someone who refuses to take responsibility for his actions. Next up, we've got constant drama and unreliability dressed up as passion. You see, we enjoy watching these things on the big screen. It's sadly entertainment for us, but in the real life, this is absolute hell. We want to feel safe and at peace in our relationships. Being in a constant crisis means that you're going to be living in a constant state of survival, which has its own consequences the longer you stay. I actually have a friend who was in a decade-long, very chaotic, abusive relationship. And it got so bad towards the end that she actually told me she went to the doctor and they told her that she was experiencing organ failure and it was due to the stress of the relationship. That is what awaits you the longer you stay in chaos. Prioritize your peace above all things. All right, we got through the red flags. So now we're going to look at the green flags. These are things to look for if you're looking for a healthy, long-lasting relationship. So when you see these, think green. Green begins with G. G means go. So first up, we've got consistent effort and reliability. He does what he says. He shows up on time. He follows through. Emotional availability from the start. No chasing required. It's not as exciting, but believe me, I say this from personal experience. This is at the heart of feeling safe and stable in a relationship, most especially if you're coming out of abuse. You got to trust this. You got to resist the temptation to run away because, if you're coming out of an abusive situation and you finally are with someone who is stable, it's going to feel so boring and cringy and it's just going to feel wrong and you're going to want to run away. Don't run away. Stay until your brain has a chance to rewire. And I promise you that the longer you stay, the more rewired your brain will get. And you're going to get to the point where you're going to recognize and appreciate this extremely underrated virtue. Next, we have emotional maturity and self-awareness. He handles conflict calmly, he takes responsibility, communicates honestly, he can be vulnerable without weaponizing it. Emotional maturity and emotional intelligence is so important. I would argue it's more important than a person's intellectual ability, as I know some very smart people who've made some not so smart decisions when it comes to relationships. So if you come from abuse, having someone who is emotionally regulated is going to help emotionally regulate you when you can learn to appreciate life without the chaos. Next, we have respect and kindness. He celebrates your successes. He's on your team. He's rooting for you. There's no competition. There's no ego. And this actually goes both ways too. So make sure that you yourself are doing the same for him. You both need to support and root for the other. Don't compete against each other. Next, we have shared values and long-term vision. He talks about future goals with family and faith, stability, aligned with yours. He wants a partnership, not just passion. If you are in the dating stage, I recommend getting all of this out right out in the open, right away. Do not waste your time with someone who doesn't share your values. I mean, I'm a firm believer that when it comes to people's character dynamics and quirks, opposites most definitely attract. But when it comes to your values, your morals, your beliefs, you have to align on those things with your partner. You have to be in alignment with that. It's non-negotiable because no matter what you do, it's not going to work out. Next up, we've got integrity and humility. He's honest even when it's hard. He admits faults. No games or performative charm masking flaws. Again, a very underrated quality, especially in today's world. But for me, it is without a doubt the most attractive quality in a man. The one who is true to themselves and don't try to be someone that they're not. They're real, and they are keepers. And finally, steady peace over fireworks. Calm connection that grows. Feels safe and energizing, not exhausting. Again, another big green flag. If the relationship is moving along slowly, that's a very good sign. That's a sign of a healthy relationship forming. And those instant connections that we see in the movies, they rarely work out in the real world. So take things slow and let things happen organically. Real love isn't a constant high, and it's not a life project. It's built on trust, mutual respect, shared growth, and communication, among other things. The honeymoon does fade away. This is true. But that is where the real love story begins, because it's the perseverance and the commitment to choosing each other every day that makes the best love stories. Don't forget that Hollywood sells fantasies that set women up for failure. Don't get caught up in the unrealistic expectations. It's a lie that if the honeymoon phase doesn't last forever, then that means something's wrong. No. Stop letting virtuous, ready-to-commit men be friend-zoned because they're boring. Stop chasing excitement and end up in burnout wondering, where are all the good men? Bridget Jones reminds us that the boring good guy often has the qualities that make a great husband. Virtuous, truthful, and steadfast. And that is what we should be looking for. Ladies, good men do exist out there, but they're just not going to play the games that culture rewards. So raise your standards, prioritize peace and respect and compatibility over drama. So if you find yourself struggling with finding a stable relationship, I want you to know that one of my specialties is narcissistic abuse recovery. It's an area that I truly love to coach people on because it literally helps people reshape their lives and believe in themselves again. A lot of times, this form of abuse will strip you of your identity because your identity is so wrapped up in this other person. I know how incredibly hard it is to break away from that and rebuild your life again after a toxic relationship. As I described earlier in this episode, it's an actual addiction. And when it comes to matters of the heart, it's not easy to face that reality that the person who made you feel alive, feel loved, someone that you envisioned spending your whole life with, was ultimately a lie. I can help give you the tools to recognize this relationship for what it is, build your self-worth back up, and begin to believe that future happiness is possible. So I highly encourage you, even if you're not ready to commit to an actual full program with me, to book a free discovery call with me anyway. For 30 minutes, you'll have my full ear to talk about your situation. I will leave you with some practical first steps, and then from there, you have at least some kind of a plan moving forward. When you're in this state, taking that first step is the hardest thing to do. And it's even harder when you feel completely alone. But I'm here to tell you that you are not alone, and that help is here if you need it. So please feel free to book your free discovery call at amlifecoaching.com. So I really would love to know what movies you have all shaped your view of love and romance. Please share your favorites in the comments below and share this episode with a friend who may be struggling to find love. We can only hope and pray that some of this commentary will give them a new perspective on love. So I want to give you a quick but important update on the Joy Zuroff case in Florida. As most of you know, I have taken a great personal interest in this story. The facts surrounding it are almost impossible to believe, especially when we're told that we live in a free country. But the truth of the matter is that Joy Zuroff has been fighting for over 2 years to get her daughter Kenley back. Kenley was removed in March of 2024 over a medical disagreement involving her cystic fibrosis treatment. Since then, Joy has faced incredible obstacles, including a gag order, having to take time off of work to drive 5 hours one way to visit her daughter for just a 2-hour supervised visit, having to stay in hotel rooms and do all of this while paying thousands and thousands of dollars to multiple ineffective lawyers, all under the constant threat of losing her parental rights permanently. But it looks like the tides are finally turning for Joy. At the April 23rd hearing, a hearing that was very brief, lasted less than 2 hours, when it was expected to last all day, it ended not only with the case being continued to September, but more importantly, a revelation that Joy's daughter Kenley was no longer in Jacksonville, Florida, but was transferred back to a foster care home in Santa Rosa County, where Joy lives. Her new attorney, Senator Jason Pizzo, said that the process is, quote, going well. So in other words, it's looking more and more hopeful that reunification is finally in the works for Joy and Kenley. And I cannot stress how huge of a shift this is. This is something that we honestly weren't feeling very optimistic about even just a couple of months ago. And it really does appear that DCF realized that they were not going to meet the high burden of proof required to terminate Joy's rights, especially with all of the public attention and political eyes now on this case. So they seem to have decided that it was best to start winding this down rather than risk a very public loss. This progress didn't happen by accident. It happened because people refused to stay silent. Advocates like Key West Jess, Romy White from South Santa Rosa News, John Davison of Broken Truth, and all of the other independent journalists, podcasters, and thousands of everyday people like me who shared the body cam footage, called elected officials, prayed, and donated. If you were a part of that, you helped turn this tide. When light is shined on institutions that normally operate in the dark, real change becomes possible, and Joy's case is living proof of that. And now at the same time as I share very much this joyous news, I have something much heavier to share that is not joyous. Tomorrow, on May 8th, the Patterson family in Florida is expected to lose their twin boys to adoption. After fighting for 4 long years, through courts, through appeals, seeking indisputable medical evidence showing their son's injuries were caused by a genetic condition, not abuse, it appears that the adoption is being fast-tracked before Patterson's law goes into effect on July 1st. That law was inspired directly by their case, and it would have given parents like the Pattersons, like Joy, the right to seek a second medical opinion before a child is removed for suspected physical abuse. This story is absolutely heartbreaking, but it's one that is sadly very common as it highlights a painful truth about our current child welfare system. Right now, there's a national push from the Trump administration for an initiative called A Home for Every Child. But far too often, that slogan seems to mean a foster or adoptive home instead of keeping children safely in their biological homes when possible. The foster care system is in crisis. We have a national shortage of foster families, and yet we continue removing children at high rates, especially from lower-income families. There are clear financial incentives built into the system through Title IV-E funding that reward placement over prevention. Parents are too often presumed guilty until proven innocent, and due process has become something more of a theory instead of a reality. Cases like Joy's and the Pattersons show us what happens when that system is not properly checked, audited, or held accountable. We need real reform, more resources, more biological families, stronger requirements to keep families together when it's safe, and honest oversight of the financial incentives that can drive unnecessary removals. Joy still has a fighting chance. The Pattersons' path appears much darker, but both cases remind us of why we cannot look away. To learn more about the Pattersons' story and to learn how you can help them, please visit youarethepower.net/Patterson. If the Patterson story breaks your heart, let it fuel you to demand better from a system that is supposed to protect families, not tear them apart. I'll keep you updated as we learn more. So before I wrap up today's episode, I wanted to share another Grateful Wife tip that will sound like a no-brainer. Maybe you're already doing it, but just in case you're not, I want to share one of my absolute favorite practices that I started doing years ago. It's something that has completely transformed how I move through my days, and it turns out that it's not just a sweet habit. It's a powerful spiritual practice that builds deep, lasting gratitude in your life. And I call it my personal litany of gratitude. It's basically a living, growing list of everything that I'm thankful for. The big things, the little things, and everything in between. Every time that I become aware of a grace God has granted me, whether it's an answered prayer, a simple joy, or even something I used to take for granted, I add it to the list. It might be my husband's morning coffee brings me, the way my kids laugh together and play good together, a quiet moment of peace in the chaos, a good health on a random Tuesday, or a beautiful sunrise. Nothing is too small or too big for the list. The key, though, is to read through it every single day, ideally first thing in the morning. When you start your day by actively remembering and declaring all of the good God has poured into your life, it shifts your whole perspective. It sets the tone for the day, protects your heart from negativity, and it helps you notice even more blessings as the day goes on. It truly has a profound impact. This practice is rooted in faith and thanksgiving to God, that's for sure. But science actually strongly backs up the power of gratitude practices like this. Research by Dr. Robert Emmons and others have shown that people who regularly keep gratitude journals exercise more and report fewer physical symptoms. They feel more optimistic about the week ahead, and they have greater overall life satisfaction compared to those who don't. Studies have found that gratitude interventions can increase happiness and positive emotions, strengthen relationships, improve sleep quality, and reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety. One large meta-analysis of randomized trials showed significant benefits for mental health and reductions in anxiety and depression symptoms. Gratitude literally rewires how we see our lives. It boosts positive neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. It lowers stress hormones like cortisol and helps build resilience. You don't need anything fancy, just a notebook, a notes app on your phone, or a document that you can easily update and review. Make it personal and keep adding to it whenever something good catches your attention. Over time, you'll have this beautiful, ever-growing testament to God's faithfulness in your life. I challenge you to give it a try for a week or two and see what happens. I'm confident that it will bless you as much as it has blessed me and my family. So that's all that I have for you today. I pray that you got something out of my rants today. If you want to hear more of what I have to say, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel to help it grow. Thank you again so much for listening today, and until next time, stay grateful. God bless.